Hey guys, it's Titans 2 here. So this is going to be like a tutorial on resin casting. Today I'm going to show you making the moulds and casting my first set of my base range for Titan Slayer miniatures. Basically, to start off, you're going to need mould rubber and this is a two-part thing. I need like a little square to stick these bases on, so it doesn't mould, so they don't float up when I put the mould rubber in. So, trying to just get a good layout and using up the least amount of rubber possible, but still having a decent enough gap to leave or to have them separate place. Yeah, once you've got that sort of them laid out, just make some little markings. I've already done that, but so we need to trim this down and cut off this bit of plastic card. Use your little craft knife or any craft knife you got just to cut out the lines. So do this with a type of ruler or metal rule. Once you've got your shape drawn out, that's good. So we just use the craft knife, score some lines, and there you have it. There's your square, which you're going to stick the bases to. Well, in my case, I'm just going to blue tack them down, and I find that it makes them stick really well, but not too much, obviously, because you don't want them off the surface at all. So you can always move them around a little bit once you've got a bit of blue tack on, but make sure they're just really firmly down, there's no space, and the bases are all clean, they've got clean edges and everything. So as this is only a one-part mould, this will be like mould rubber. This is the simplest kind of mould you can make. Right, so there we have it. I put the logo on and that's ready. Right guys, once you've done that, you get onto the fun part, using good old Lego. So, kind of helpful if you have one of these sort of big bases. If not, I suppose you could make do with just using a lot of Lego. And you build up the Lego so it fits this almost perfectly, and then we'll get on to the next stage. You just keep building around the edges, typical Lego style, as if you're making a house. As a note, now once you got to the first level, it's probably easiest to do the filling in the gaps now and making sure this is stuck fully down. So to fill the gaps in, we use good old some plasticine, basically anything like that. Just put a little bit underneath, little tiny blobs, so 6 little bits will be enough. Okay, and then we press that down. Just being careful not to get plasticine actually in the green stuff where you've sculpted. Now you've got that, I'm going to push bits of plasticine down into the gaps where the edges are. Now if we didn't do that, the mould rubber would go in between and down underneath the plastic, and that would just make the whole process, you'd have to trim it all off and it'd be a bit annoying. Once you've pushed it in, use a sculpting tool or something to get rid of the excess so you have quite a straight edge. Maybe a little bit of round, but not too much, because you don't want to be pouring the resin in and it just sort of going everywhere because of the round sections. Okay. Right, once you got the second level, just use these sort of bits to make sure that it's all fastened down. Right, and there we have it. So that's you ready to pour the mould rubber in now. It's about 150 millilitres needed of mould rubber to make the mould for this. It comes in two parts. You got this part, which is the main section, and then you've also got the curing agent, which in this case is blue. Yeah, so And this you have to put, here we go, yeah, 5 parts to every 100. So it's about 20% that you needed. But I estimate using the colours I've already got right here. So, and the amount of that added affects the amount, like of time it takes to cure. So here it's a lighter one, so that took like maybe 2 days, whereas this one, that went in a couple hours, maybe say about 3, 4, 5 hours, something like that. So this is an example of a single part mould, and this is an example of a 2-part mould. Now in a 2-part mould you need loads of sprue and line mould parts. So we pour into the measuring cup until you get to the 150 mark or near. So you don't get it everywhere, just wipe it off. Okay, and putting the lids back on. Okay, so when adding this, just add a little bit and then stir. Use quite a thick stick or paintbrush handle, so make sure you get around all the edges. Try and work as quick as possible with this as well, because the quicker you work, the better sort of pour you get. Tiny bit more in, just make sure you get the right levels. Now we're going to pour it, and as this is the side where there isn't much detail, I'm going to pour it in from this side. Like I was saying, pour in from one side. Not too fast, but not too slow, just let the mixture run over in its own time. Make sure you're doing this on a flat surface as well, because you don't, especially with the bases, you don't want a wonky mould, because if it's wonky, you're going to have to compensate later on. You don't really have to wipe it off the jug very much, because that'll dry later and it'll just peel off once it's cured. Right, now to make sure you've got all the air bubbles out of this, do the same. And as you can see, all those little air bubbles are coming out. So the less air bubbles in, the better the mould. Now, if you notice there's bumps in the surface, like as if it hasn't had too much, hasn't got enough rubber on, you can always put some more back over the top. If you mix it together quickly, do the same process, it comes out fine, because that's what happened to me with this mould. As you can see, the different colours and textures, but it worked out fine. So leave that about 3 hours to 5 hours, or overnight preferably, and we'll get back to it. So I'll see you tomorrow. So guys, now it's the morning, that's set, and well, I tried to look at it a bit earlier, so it's got a little bit of a fingerprint mark, but yeah, it's fully set now. So you just remove all the Lego. Alright. But you notice you've got all these little bits of mould rubber, but there's no problem. They don't do anything. You can cut them off with a knife. Take that carefully off, because you've got the plastic underneath. Alright, and just remove all the plasticine. Once you've done that, just peel off using each side carefully. And there's going to be some overlap, but it won't be a problem. If you've got these little bits of excess, you just cut them off with a craft knife. Now you're basically ready to cast now. The resin is a 2-part 50-50 mix usually. One of which, in this case, is like a clear, sort of cloudy colour, slightly, and the other one's like a brown toffee-ish colour. And another key thing to get the best results and no air bubbles, I use mould release agent, and that sort of takes away the surface tension. I apply this to the mould using like a big sort of softish brush, obviously, and don't leave the lid off this very long because it evaporates very quickly. And you might notice it makes the thin bits a little bit wrinkly, but that goes really quickly once it's evaporated. You just pour equal amounts into 2 different cups to make sure you've got the right amount. Yeah, you might find that you overestimate it when you're first doing it, but that's not too bad. I wouldn't worry about that. You'll get used to measuring certain amounts. You mix the 2 parts of resin together, just making sure that you've got equal amounts. Just pour one into the other and mix with like the end of a paintbrush or something. It works perfectly. Right, and making sure you've mixed it fully well. Pour it carefully into each section. And as you can see, I've pretty much measured that perfectly. So, just skim off the surface a little bit. I know it sort of carries over, but it doesn't matter. And then, you do this to get all the air bubbles out, but in something like this, there doesn't tend to be lots of air bubbles. As you can see, it's starting to whiten, and it goes really quickly. It goes within like 2 minutes. Yes, that once it's white, you still have to wait about 5 minutes for it to fully harden because it's quite pliable. I'd advise not to get any of this stuff on your fingers, by the way, because it takes a while to get off. So, once it gets to this stage, it's fully hardened and it snaps, and it's quite brittle resin is so it's not like plastic how you can bend it. The only way to bend it is to put it in hot boiling water, and it's sort of quite pliable then. Peel it off while it's there, because it follows the lines, because they're still anchored into each of the slots. As you can see, if you do that, they come free quite easily. And let's see, you just pop them out. There you go. One thing to note when using resin is the actual dust from it is carcinogenic, so you need to be wearing a mask, a face mask, and doing it in a well ventilated area. Or if you're under 16, it's probably best to get an adult to help you or do it for you. I put them alongside the original sculpted ones just to let you see. So on the left hand side you have the resin ones, obviously, and yeah, so they've come out of this mould, which will be my volcanic wasteland 25mm range. So there's 10 there. So yeah, I'll get these painted up and put some pictures, and that's basically my conclusion of how to cast. So I hope it was useful, and thanks for watching, and any questions just put it in the comments or my inbox. Okay, thanks, bye.